What's the most bizarre game you've ever played? Is it as bizarre as the one you're seeing on screen here? Can it top a first-person, surrealist horror pinball game? Now, I've covered my fair share of bizarre games on the channel. Limbo of the Lost, Mr. Bones, Illbleed. They all have their quirks and oddities about them. But I wager that Screaming Mad George's ParanoiaScape is the strangest of all. It's been a game on my radar for a while to cover. Two reasons for covering it now. One, as of writing, we're in Halloween season. It's a great time for it. Second is an English patch for the game released earlier this month. Not that you need it to get through the game, but it does add a bit more context to what's going on. Because what's going on here? My friends, it's quite the ride. A strong vision from one eccentric individual who marches to the beat of their own drum, whose work you may be more familiar with than you think. If you want to experience ParanoiaScape for yourself, check the pinned comment and description for a link to the translation patch. I'll also include a link to a tutorial on how to patch PS1 games. So let's dive into the world of Screamin' George. We have quite the intro, both visual and audio-wise, to get the ball rolling here. You may find yourself wondering, who is this Screaming Mad George fellow? Well, if you're like me, you'll come to realize how much of his work you do know. His real name is Joji Tani. He was born in Osaka, Japan in 1956. He took the name of George to stand out from others, something that's a motif in his life. Where does the Screaming Mad come from? It's a combination of his love for Screaming Jay Hawkins and Mad magazine. In the late 1970s, he moved to America, attending the School of Visual Arts in New York City. This was an interesting time frame for him to move to New York City. He got into American punk music at legendary music clubs like CBGB, a club that helped spearhead the careers of bands like the Ramones. Here's a clip of George playing with his band at the legendary Budokan venue in Tokyo in the early 90s. As you could see from the clip, he takes a theatrical approach on stage. Well, story of his life. He would have band members wearing masks with rotted corpse faces underneath that they would tear off. He had a blast doing this and started to make more elaborate masks for music videos. These music videos would lead him to getting his first job in Hollywood. He started as an assistant to special effects artists and made his way up the food chain. He worked on movies like Big Trouble in Little China, Predator, a couple of Nightmare on Elm Street entries as a special effects artist. He co-directed the 1991 film The Guyver, starring Mark Hamill. Turns out most of where I know George's work is not from movies, but music videos. But most notable is his work with the band Slipknot. And not on the music video front. Corey Taylor of the band loved his work. The band hired George to create masks during their early to mid-2000s era. Some served as prototypes that would change. Some band members would go on to wear them. I only have surface level knowledge of the band, so if you are well versed in Slipknot, I'm curious to hear below which of these masks the band members did wear. For music videos, George has quite the list of artists he got to work with. One notable music video being Closer by 9 Inch Nails. He worked on music videos for Marilyn Manson, Korn, Ozzy Osbourne, Iron Maiden, bands with tones and imagery that fit his style like a glove. But it was quite amusing to read the list of other videos he worked on. Musicians like Missy Elliott, Dave Matthews Band, Shania Twain, NSYNC, Ricky Martin. Bit of a contrast, to say the least. Now, for ParanoiaScape, I looked around for information on how this game came to be and ended up empty. I'm guessing someone pitched the idea to the higher-ups, maybe George himself, who shrugged their shoulders and said, sure, why not? If the game sells, great. If not, well, oh well. ParanoiaScape is a 1998 release. Back then, decision makers were still willing to throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Smaller teams and budgets made it far more feasible. Now this game wouldn't be Screaming Mad George's only contribution to the gaming world, although his other major contribution is more indirect. The George Romero directed Japanese commercial for Resident Evil 2, he did the special effects and makeup for the zombies.
Well, now, zombie is something that is very, in a way, it's so overdone. And I usually tends to do something that is more in the surreal stage. So, and then, like, trying to make something very different from anybody's done, same genre. But in the sense of zombie, is it very difficult to try to put something very, surrealistic imagery thing going on, because then it really cuts off from the original, point. You're right. So, I just thought, okay, well, we should just do it, make the really good zombies.
That's quite the list of industry royalty he's worked with. George Romero, John Carpenter, Mark Hamill. Same goes for the work he did on music videos. It's quite the list of bands and artists. He's still doing his thing to this day. Here's some footage of him performing live on stage from a few years back. He does art exhibits on the regular. His approach to his works, which he described as anti-realism, has always been handcrafted. Very much someone who marches to the beat of their own drum. There's a funny quote from an article in the 80s that says, "I may look like a weirdo, but once you talk to me, you know I'm really just normal." So let's see what he has in store for us with ParanoiaScape. The manual gives some context to the game's sparse story. Note that I could only find a Japanese manual, which makes sense, the game only released in Japan. I did use Google Translate, so while not perfect, gives a clear enough idea. The Demon King of the Demon World, he's seeking a successor. He's been running challenges to weed out candidates. He's narrowed it down to 2 skeleton brothers from the Demon World countryside. What awaits them is their final test before they take up the mantle as his successor. So, what is this final test? A bizarre game of pinball. Not top-down, mind you. One behind the flippers, that being behind the 2 skeleton brothers. We get a lay of the land from the first person behind them. It shouldn't come as a surprise that it's quite the eccentric visual landscape with Screaming Mad George at the helm. The same goes for the music, which Screaming Mad George did as well. You could hear those punk elements at work, along with some industrial inspirations. Let's enjoy a sampling of it here. There's this one track with a couple of distinct voice samples. I swear that one of them is the voice of Mario from Mario 64 when he takes damage. And the other one, I've heard it in other games. Pretty sure it's been in a game I've covered on the channel. Although for the life of me, I can't think of what game or games it's been in. Speaking of voices, George himself pops up in game. In the later stage, we have to hit the pinball, which is a brain, at the correct target to advance. George himself will pop up on screen to congratulate us or tell us to try again.
Yeah, feels good. What the hell are you doing? That's not it.
To note, in the original version, George's voice was in Japanese, but there were English recordings of his voice on disc, ones that this fan translation restored. This seems to suggest they had the thought of releasing the game in the West back in the day, which never came to fruition. ParanoiaScape does play different than your typical pinball game. The flippers are not static and set in place. You use the direction pad or the face buttons to move them in said direction. The shoulder button activates the flippers. For most levels, you need to move the flippers and the ball to its end. Along the way, you'll need to deal with oddities of varying levels, clearing them by hitting them with the brain ball. Notable oddities include these women's legs with their face on their butt. According to the manual, these roaches on the ground with a man's face, this is Jack the Ripper in roach form. If your brain ball slips by you, you'll lose that ball. You can set the number of balls you have in the options, 5, 10, 15, or infinite. If you do run out, the game sends you back to the beginning of that level. I found myself setting the ball count to infinite. Yes, you do have a score count, but that's not the main focus of ParanoiaScape. The pinball element is, well, secondary. It's the bizarre landscapes and audio collage that's the game's focus. You do also have a health bar if enemies run into your flippers, but you'll find plenty of health drops to refill it as you progress. ParanoiaScape is about 30 minutes to get through. The first stage eases, well, I don't know if eases is the best word, well, it gets you into this game world. The second stage takes us into the innards of a body, the third being surreal, and the final stage being alchemical. There are some levels that are on rails, where enemies will steal our brain ball and we chase them to get it back, or boss fights that move us back and forth along a track beyond our control. Beyond levels, you'll get sparse text of what to expect and some story developments. Things take a bit of a bizarre turn, well, more bizarre in the game's final stage, the alchemical stage. We need to unite the king and queen to give birth to a new life form. First, we have to match up the correct symbols for the 4 elements. Then we play as this tricycle doll thing, go through this graveyard, avoid the zombies, find the queen and king and bring them to the bed in the middle. They embrace, creating the rebus, and we're done. We get a brief look at what must be George's studio after the credits roll. The game does mention to be continued, see you next time, something that never came to be. Curious to what they had in mind for a sequel. Would they be able to top what they had here? Would they continue as a pinball title or try something else? Too bad it never came to fruition. I'd wager due to the time frame it would have been a PS2 title. I couldn't find anything about the company behind ParanoiaScape, so it wouldn't surprise me if they went under. It's an oddity, to say the least, amongst the gaming pantheon. I mean, what other first-person, surrealist horror pinball games are there? None that pop to my mind. Of all the games I've covered on this channel, screamingmadgeorge's ParanoiaScape is the most out there. An unforgettable 30-minute thrill ride. Can't think of anything else there quite like it. I've given you a taste of what it is, but it's something you have to experience yourself. If you're looking for bizarre horror, set aside 30 minutes and immerse yourself into the world of Screaming Mad George. Thanks for watching. Curious to hear about your thoughts below. Have you played games as bizarre as this one? To the maggots out there, I'm curious about what masks Slipknot used from Screaming George, or still do. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so. Special shout out to the Boulder Punchers who give extra support to the channel on Patreon or YouTube memberships. For those in the complete global saturation tier, American Boot, Flan Nagel. For those in the thank you for your patronage tier, Tom Terrible. For those in the now this is Boulder Punching tier, Ethan, the Madman in Waco, James Warner, Cray, Korean characters that Vegas Pro doesn't want to show but translates to Natu, the original Narcisse Diet Thick Do TM Neo Edition, for those in the Jill Sandwich tier, On Hell, Benji, Benny Winterdawn, BB FN Bloxburg, Dark Rod 99, Extraordinary 2, James Kilgore, Leonard Aronson, Logan Lepin, Mad Morpheus Gaming, Michael Walters, Nico Pero, Sam Jones, Squid Vicious, Will Han, and Zen. If you'd like to join as a member or make a one-time donation through Ko-fi, check the pinned comment or description for links. As well in the pinned comment and description, I'll have a link to the translation patch along with how to apply the patch. Thanks again. I'll see you around.
That's not it! How many times do I have to say this?